Welcome to the Falling for Learning podcast. I am TD Flenaugh. So, today we're going to talk about perfectionism. Now, if you have been following the show, you know that this is something that I have been dealing with for a long time in my life. And I say that I'm a recovering perfectionist. And if you have a child that is like an overachiever or is just driving themselves crazy, you want to stay tuned for this show because I'm going to give you some insight on how to support them even when they are driving themselves crazy. Even those kids need support. Stay tuned. Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. I am TD Flenaugh. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Okay, perfectionism. Now, you may or may not have this issue, but here are some things that you need to look for with your kids. Sometimes you have kids that you really need to get motivated, you really need to help them out, and then you'll have kids on the other side of the spectrum where they're always taking on a lot, where they are very upset when they have made a mistake, where they are not done with something. Um, Even though you think it looks really good and they still feel like it needs to be better and they're working on it and they keep working on it and they're up late at night and they're up early in the morning and in fact you see them driving themselves crazy. I am a recovering perfectionist, and if you see these qualities with your kids, here are some things that you can do to help them. Now, first of all, you just saying that it's good enough or it looks good, or you don't need to do more than that doesn't help them. I want to tell you right away that I know that I'm a perfectionist, and part of it is being judgmental about people who feel like this is good enough. And it's, you know, I'm stopping here. I'm not doing more than that. I'm not doing all of that. The perfectionist person's going to be thinking, okay, you're, low quality, loser, whatever adjectives come to mind, but basically they don't trust your judgment. So you can be their parent or whoever, but they have their own standard that they're not living up to what you're talking about. And they're going to keep working and keep driving themselves crazy. Even though you may say it's okay, they have their own standard. So you need to know that you just saying that it's good enough doesn't make it good enough for them as a perfectionist. So, perfectionists do often just take on more. They feel like, okay, I'm able to do it. I could get it done. And for a long time, I even touted myself as what you call a how girl, meaning that even though something may seem very difficult or hard, I'm going to find out how to do it, how to get it done. And when I'm saying how, it's not like other people, it's me. Like I'm going to wake up earlier. I'm going to go to bed later. I'm going to fit this in this little 10-minute break that I have. I'm going to get it done. And so that is a little bit of inside of the mind of a perfectionist. So you're going to see this happening. Now, obviously they take a lot of pride in their work as a perfectionist. You're really going to be taking a but there it's a two-edged sword. So where it really gets in, to be problematic is that when they're in the middle of doing something that they were like for sure they could do because they could handle anything, they're going to be really stressed out. They're going to be maybe having panic attacks. They're going to be having all these challenges because